So why don't you talk to the actual person who is in charge of the organization and whose idea it was to have the protests at the church before you start blaming me for stuff for which you have no idea.
The people who did this made a big, big mistake. This will be met with the full force of the United States Department of Justice, as the Attorney General has directed, and there will be further legal action in coming days.
Ladies and gentlemen, like I said yesterday, Don Lemon is a loser, a disgusting human being, and a coward. And he's now realizing that he got himself into some deep legal trouble. As everyone knows by now, Don Lemon led a group of radical left nut jobs to storm a church in Minneapolis and intimidate a congregation that they said were pro-ICE.
This is Operation Pull Up, more of a clandestine operation. We show up somewhere that is a key location. They don't expect us to come there, and then we disrupt business as usual. So that's what we're about to go do right now.
They pointed cameras at church members, doxed them, screamed at their face, violated multiple federal laws.
Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Where are your people? Why are you not at Whipple every day fighting for the humanity, standing for our people, doing absolutely nothing for your Latino and Somali brothers and sisters? You come here to a man wearing a suit. Is a preacher? Did Jesus wear a suit?
And the Assistant U.S. Attorney General, Harmeet Dillon, who handles the Civil Rights Division, announced that the DOJ was on the case to bring charges, and Don Lemon went on his live stream having a meltdown. We'll start with this video from Don Lemon, then I'll show you Harmeet Dillon on Benny Johnson's show explaining just how much trouble Don Lemon is in.
MAGA administration and the fake news MAGAs are losing their mind over something that's not even true. So let me just make it clear, because this Assistant Attorney General, I don't know, gosh, what's her name? Something Hammett.
Dude, you should memorize her name, because the Trump DOJ is under pressure from the MAGA base to do something. Because how bad would it look for the Trump administration if they do nothing about leftist storming a church, a conservative institution? They're going to be pushing to put you in prison for a long time, Don.
Dillon, or whatever. So, I had no affiliation to that organization. I didn't even know they were going to this church until we followed them there. We were there chronicling protests. Once the protest started in the church, we did an act of journalism, which was...
So now it's, I didn't even know they were planning that. Well, good thing the internet exists. Don Lemon admitted his intent before storming the church. He knew exactly what the group was going to do. This will be evidence in the courtroom.
Into Minneapolis a little bit ago and did some reconnaissance on the ground, speaking to an organization there that's gearing up for resistance and protest. I've been pleasantly surprised to see the community coming together. Diverse community. If you see this, when we first pulled up, we're like, wait a minute, which operation are we at? And as it turns out, because we were like, well, this is kind of MAGA coded, right? Saw the American flag or whatever, but these are resistance protesters. They're planning an operation that we're going to follow them on. I can't tell you exactly what they're doing, but it's called Operation Pull Up, and it's Takima Armstrong, and she has been doing this since George Floyd, Dante Wright, and others, where they surprise people, catch them off guard, and hold them to account. And so that's what we're doing here. And then after we do this operation, you'll see it live. And these operations are surprise operations. Again, I can't tell you where they're going.
We're literally watching this guy dig himself a hole. Oh, I didn't know they were planning a protest. Him outside, yeah, they're about to storm. I can't tell you the whole plan because that would jeopardize the mission. But it's called Operation Pull Up. So he's saying what he did was an act of journalism. That disproves that.
Which was report on it and talk to the people who were involved, which included the pastor, members of the church, and members of the organization. That's it. It's called journalism. First Amendment, all that stuff. For all of you people who believe in the First Amendment, absolutist, there you go. So why don't you talk to the actual person who is in charge of the organization and whose idea it was to have the protests at the church before you start blaming me for stuff for which you have no idea. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
So this is a pretty long one from Harmeet Dillon and Benny Johnson. She's going to explain how much trouble Don Lemon and those nut jobs are in under the FACE Act.
However, that same law gives us the right at the Department of Justice to prosecute the same kind of conduct vis-a-vis any house of worship. And There's been a lot of talk of the First Amendment thrown around. The First Amendment includes the right to pray without interference. It includes the right of these people to not have so-called journalists and a mob of activists disrupt their sacred day of prayer. And so, as far as I can tell, these very foolish people have already, many of them self-identified online as to who they were. They posted who their accomplices were. Don Lemon has made numerous admissions online as to his participation here and his intention and his knowledge of what was going to happen inside that sacred place. And so we're gathering the facts, and there will be action here. I know people are frustrated. Where are the arrests, et cetera? Let me explain that for you and your team, Benny, because state prosecutors could have arrested some of these people yesterday. They don't have some of the same hurdles that we do in the DOJ. When DOJ, we gather our facts, we go to a federal judge. A federal judge has to issue the search warrants. We all know what the federal judges are doing right now in Minnesota. We will pursue charges in this case. I see various crimes that have occurred. Exactly what they are, I'm not going to flag, but the FACE Act has been mentioned as one of the predicates there. In other cases, the Biden DOJ used the Klan Act conspiracy charges tacked on to the FACE Act in the case of protests outside abortion clinics to bring much longer sentences. So there are a number of tools available to us. Who funded this? What else? What other crimes may have occurred? Was there a use of the wires or the mails in preparing for this event? Did anyone cross state lines to do this? All of those are potential predicates for additional federal charges.
Harmeet, I've just pulled up the Klan Act because this is the first time that I've heard this mentioned. This is an act that was passed in 1871, correction there, to combat the Ku Klux Klan and protect African Americans' voting rights, especially the Enforcement Act, which is known as the Force Act. So here's some of the information on screen. Would you mind breaking down for us, because we have just read the FACE Act and how this is an obscenity to the FACE Act, an obvious and egregious demonstrable violation of the FACE Act because they were entering a place of worship, harassing and threatening. We just played a video of a man, a bearded man, who was threatening to attack the Christians that were worshiping there. So it seems like an obvious FACE Act violation. But the Klan Act here, it is on screen. First time I've heard it mentioned. Can you unpack this for us, Harmeet?
Yeah, the Klan Act is one of the most important federal civil rights statutes, and it goes back to the time when President Lincoln emancipated the slaves, and yet the southern states, Dixiecrats mainly, were refusing to give them equal rights. And in fact, that you had sheriffs and you had law enforcement harassing the newly freed slaves. So the Klan Act is a law that makes it illegal to terrorize citizens, to violate their civil rights, to get together and conspire to violate the civil rights.
I just thought about it. Don Lemon's entire career was him as a race baiter. That was his profession. And he's going to get charged under the KKK Act. Oh, this is glorious, ladies and gentlemen.
It is often used against law enforcement, but is now used against others as well. So whenever anyone conspires to violate the protected civil rights of American citizens, the Klan Act can be used to bring a conspiracy charge. We, in the federal law enforcement parlance, call this 241 and 242 civil and criminal conspiracies. And so what the Biden administration did is, if three grandmas got together to pray outside an abortion clinic for the souls of the people inside, and including the unborn children, they would say, oh, that's not just a violation of the Klan Act, that's a conspiracy to violate the civil rights of women going in there to get abortions. And so we're going to add additional charges and punish that more and make it from a misdemeanor under the FACE Act to a felony under the Klan Act. And President Trump pardoned the pro-life protesters in those cases. I have recently defended successfully in the 11th Circuit a case called Oropesa, a case of Jane's Revenge, the pro-abortion protesters violently attacking crisis pregnancy centers in Florida. And we had the court uphold the Klan Act criminal enhancement to the FACE Act. So I know this is very deep in the weeds, but the point is, there are a number of things. The FACE Act is just the start. Like I said, you have material support for disruptive activities. You have conspiracy.
You know, I feel like how women feel when the man they love gets on his knee and says, will you marry me? This is how I feel right now. I'm so happy to hear this, Harmeet. Accountability is all I want. They say a well-cooked meal is a way to a man's heart or something like that. I disagree. Accountability is the way to my heart. Squeeze that lemon into lemonade.
To violate civil rights, you have potentially the use of other instrumentalities to commit crimes. And so some of these folks who did this have self-identified. Don Lemon himself has come out and said he knew exactly what was going to happen inside that facility. He went into the facility and then he began, quote unquote, committing journalism. And as if that's sort of a shield from being an embedded part of a criminal conspiracy. It isn't. And so, we're getting our ducks in a row. We're putting the facts together. And this is a very serious matter. Come next Sunday, nobody should think in the United States that they're going to be able to get away with this. Everyone in the protest community needs to know that the fullest force of the federal government is going to come down and prevent this from happening and put people away for a long, long time.
Praise God. I mean, that's just so wonderful to hear.
I love the words. And I'm going to love the action even more. This is precisely why I think the DOJ will do something. I posted my opinion last night. I said if Pam Bondi doesn't throw Don Lemon in jail for what he did today, then she needs to be fired. Almost 1 million views, a crap ton of engagement. And that's who she was referring to when she said, I know people are feeling frustrated. They're waiting, they're asking where the action is, but we're working on it. That's why she said that. Don Lemon needs to be in prison for a long time, alongside his co-conspirators. A church is not where you go to harass people and violate their First Amendment right to worship God. Lemon saying, what about free speech? Well, what about the freedom to worship God? You violated their freedom, and that's what matters in the courtroom. But I'm a journalist. Yeah, but you stormed the church with a group that went in there to disrupt service, to intimidate people, harass worshipers, attack the pastor with vile language. That accountability will be sweet, it'll be beautiful, and it'll deter future nut jobs, lunatics from doing the same thing. Thank you all very much for watching. God bless and goodbye.